Hi, welcome back to Night Brothers Hobbies. Today we're going to take a look at our final miniature or bigature for Metal Gear Solid the board game. This is Metal Gear Solid Rex. Now, it's my first time painting something this big on camera, so please bear with if the angles or focus aren't that great. Regardless, though, I hope y'all stick around and see as we try to paint this as accurate to the video games while still being fun and simple. And before we begin, I highly recommend take a little pause, get some Google reference, and let's get into it. First things first, we're going to use a mix of Nuln Oil and just a medium, a paint medium, acrylic medium to thin this down and make it into a even thinner wash to have better like fluidity, to have it really sit more in the crevices than on the flat panels. Um, I used contrast medium this time and just did a 50-50 mix. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I have some some tide marks and some streaks. It is less than if we had just done straight Nuln Oil or some other contrast paint. But regardless, you don't have to be super duper clean on this, because I'm just gonna dry brush the heck out of it to bring up a lot of that flat paneling. I think maybe this is my own personal taste, but I think that a big miniature like this, especially vehicles, they can afford to be a little grungy, a little grimy, and so a few tide marks or splotches here and there is not a big deal to me, because we're going to pick out a bunch of other details and kind of focal points along the way to help really make it stand out against those blotches. It'll just look like rusty wear and tear and dirt and grime. So you can see I switched to Wraithbone, and that's again just to give it another kind of tone. I'm just mixing it up and stabbing it and just kind of going ham to clear up, soften out a lot of those tide marks, as well as add texture and smooth it out and get even some highlights in there with our dry brush. Just go crazy on it. Then we're using Basilicanum Gray, and this is that first step to, like I mentioned, picking out your focal points and just breaking up the miniature. So go around and pick out details that you think should, be points of interest, or that you think should be a different metal or kind of material going around, right? Like what part is armor paneling versus mechanical gear systems and such. And that's what I did, as well as looking at some reference to pick out what is, canonically as well as just visually what looks kind of interesting. And so this is what I came up with. I even missed a couple spots that I pick out later on, like some pistons on the feet, and some extra like shafts or whatever in one of the legs, like the little high heel thing. So just take some time, look at the reference, look at the miniature, and pick out the details you want to see. With that all blocked in, we are going to just dry brush more detail back into this guy. I'm using Bold Titanium White, and this is going to go over pretty much everything. You can put it over the main armor of the miniature. You can focus on just the dark gray parts that we blocked in. It is really up to you. I went kind of willy-nilly all over. I started focusing on those dark gray areas, but then occasionally went to, like the head or the side of the leg, etc. Just because it is going to be a brighter white edge highlight than the previous Wraithbone and Gray that we put on earlier. And then, of course, I'm going to keep using this white and just paint in these lights. So there's some lights on the head, some thin lights, so be careful and spot those out, as well as some lenses going around the miniature. And of course, as you can see, I'm doing some messy white inside that railgun, just on the bottom there, and you'll see what we do with that later. Now, a tip from Peachy Tips, I'm using some masking tape here. We're going to do some guides for some quick hazard stripes and patterns on this guy. And so I'm just putting that on there, some masking tape around and blocking those in. You can see going in there. It's in the original PlayStation version, as well as some of the various model kits around, so pick and choose. Maybe you want to add some more, maybe you want to add less. Regardless, though, I'm then going to use a sponging technique and use Wraithbone here, or and you can use any other kind of white base. I like Wraithbone for this kind of stuff. And just pop that on there. Just sponge it down into the area that you're going to do your hazard stripe. Using that sponge will make it not only quick, but add some interesting texture and make it look a little worn as well. And we're following up those lenses with Frostheart to give us our blue color. So there's 6 lenses on the side of the head, as well as those thin lights just on the front nose. Take your time with those areas. They are quite thin and difficult to get into. Maybe get your magnifying glass out if you have trouble seeing them. They are quite tricky to get into. I'm also using this on the railgun. Again, I've only painted the bottom white. You can do the top if you want. You don't even have to do this part if you don't want to, if you don't like what I end up doing with that railgun. But yeah, I splatter that all in there, and Blood Angels red on the laser gun. Yandin yellow for the stripes. Now we're actually putting in those hazard stripes. Just going in and basically glazing it in. You don't need to be overly heavy-handed with that Yandin yellow. Just glaze it in and keeps consistent in one direction. Make it smooth. Bringing out the white again, we're going to do our lens highlights. So that's all those little lenses on the side of the head. The one inside the railgun I did. And then, of course, the laser gun on the bottom. I gave it an interesting little weird highlight. I put a big slash on the top, a dot on the bottom, and then a nice thin little line in there, kind of like making something interesting looking. Of course, we also have those thin lights inside the head. I didn't even fill them up all the way. I gave it some interesting little line textures in there. And of course, the railgun, just smashing that in there, just smashing white all in there roughly. When that finished, though, I applied a quick coat of Pilar Glacier over top just to tone everything down and kind of get it looking uniform. Athonian Camo Shade. Now, we're going to use this for a camo, actually. What it's used for. I do 2 coats on each of these designs, and I just go around and make some kind of urban camo look all around here. There's lots of artwork that you can source your camo from. I had a picture of just one side of it, so some of them I just made up and kind of went with the theme of what I had already done before. And with this, I just went neat out of the pot, no thinning, and just did 2 coats on each one of those designs. Then, of course, our basing, just slap some basilicum and dry brush the heck out of it. There you have it. Metal Gear Rex is all finished. A big beast of a miniature. This was pretty fun to do. I haven't really done a lot of vehicles. I don't really have a lot of sets that incorporate them. So this was kind of fun to experiment with and see what worked. And I do feel like I learned some lessons from the Dragon Ball floating car episode that we did a while back, where I wanted that car to look rough, but I feel like it did look a little too rough. So taking some lessons from there, but still wanting it to be quick and dry brush heavy, I think I really improved that kind of rough vehicle look with just using those simple tools. Of course, we can still take off the little Soliton radar here. I did not glue them on because, if you watched my unboxing video, the insert for this game is perfect. It is so good, so useful. It fits absolutely everything into the box. So I kept these separate, and hopefully you can also see how they look, the detail on there that we managed to get. But I did paint this all as one unit, just so it was all uniform while I was doing it. That's why it was a little snug to pull them off. There was some dried paint here and there. But yeah, so these separated will now fit in the box quite nicely. And of course, I can put them on for play quite easily. Then when everything's said and done, just as easily, we can pull them off, put them back in the box, and store that away nice and secure. Now, those of you who own the game, as well as keen-eyed viewers, will notice that there is one miniature missing, or rather 2, and that is Snake in a box. So you get this little sneaking token in the game of Snake inside a box, and while I didn't film painting it, it is super easy to paint. First things first, we did a spray can zenithal, followed by a skeleton horde contrast wash all over the place. Then I just dry brushed all over, building up brighter and brighter colors. Screaming Skull, Tyrant Skull, Bold Titanium White. Did the label with Blood Angels Red. Used that Bold Titanium White again for the little white labels. Used a little fine line marker for the writing on the labels. Put a little bit of black inside those little handles. And painted Snake's legs like we've painted his legs before. But with that, this is the end of Metal Gear Solid, the board game series. We have painted everything. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed the series or were painting along with me. Big ups to the patrons, as well as everybody who watches on YouTube. I'll be gone on vacation for a couple of weeks, but I'll be thinking about the next project, as well as a 3,000 subscriber special. So until then, thank you all so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!